back. This is another episode of Behind the Wheel. Today we're joined by Deric Dabrowski. I am Dabrowski. I am Daniel Kinsman, and this is Dan Shipley, the two hosts today. And we'll go ahead and take it away.
All right. Well, I'm Deric Dabrowski. I've been a driver now for just over 6 years. I'm currently a livestock hauler. I started out with Pam Transport running over the road. I did about a year and a couple months there. I signed a contract with them. They sent me through trucking school, got me my CDL. It was a 4-week trucking school. I'd like to get into trucking schools later on in the podcast and how that works. I hauled everything from dry-vans, reefers, straight trucks, car carriers, feed tankers, which led me up to my livestock career now. I'm from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I lived there until I was about 21 when I went over the road. And then met my fiance and moved out to Ohio, where I currently reside.
So you started off with Pam.
Yep.
Now you started drive-in and over the road.
Correct.
What led you to the next career path? You said drive-in. Pam, I don't believe, does very much temp control. So then did you go direct to temp control from there?
So when I was running over the road, my goal was to come back and get a local position. That way I had more time to get out here to Ohio on the weekends. It wasn't really what I wanted to do. It was just the first job I could find getting off of the road to get me off the road. Which of course, Pam, they tried to hold me over the road. And I just wound up quitting, leaving my teammate with the truck and getting a job running a reefer. And I was hauling gallons of milk in the city of Philadelphia is what I was delivering.
Okay. So your goal was always to try and take a local job. Pam was just the means to an end.
It was. But of course, I always missed being over the road. So I would hop back and forth between regional and local for a few years. And, I always wanted to be a livestock driver. That was my goal when I was working with Pam. I always thought they were the coolest guys on the road. I liked all the life.
Why?
It was just, coming out of the city, you don't know how to get there. So, but that's where my career led me. So, I love my job now. So I guess I can say I'm doing what I love.
Look, I was always told that livestock is the hardest career to get into inside of trucking. Like, it's not the easiest career to get into.
You have no farm background. I lived in the city, the heart of the city. No farm background. There was barely any grass around me. I didn't even decide to even be a truck driver until, I turned 21 and I was like, I need to get out of here. And that was my way out of the city. So as soon as I got that opportunity, I was like, I remember sitting there with my one buddy. I was doing electrical work at the time. I said, I'm going to go be a truck driver. He said, no, you're not. I said, why? For me, I called the recruiter right there in front of him. I said, all right, I'll be out of here in 4 weeks.
Hey, sometimes it's our buddies that will jab us just right, that it's like, fine, I'll prove you wrong.
Hey, I'm glad he did it because, I love my job now, so I cannot.
Do you remember your first load of livestock? What was that like?
So my first load of livestock, really, when I was out with the dude who was training me, I didn't think it was that difficult. Obviously getting used to swinging all the gates around and stuff like that, trying to learn the weights of the pigs and stuff like that. Yeah, once you learn all the weights, how to move your gates, lay your bedding down. I think the hardest part for me was when I first started, I had to wash the trailers every day. Well, that's a 2-hour process. You got to flush out your bedding, pressure wash it down, sanitize it, rinse it, throw it in the dryer. Once you buy it, dry it, you just park it. But it's about a 2.5 hour process just to make sure your trailer's ready for the next
No,
day.
you're not talking about like a Maytag dryer, are you?
No, I don't.
No,
I don't know what
okay.
kind of dryer it is.
Little spoiler alert for everybody listening is I'm also a livestock driver. So
Dan has also bounced around a couple different parts of the industry.
Yep.
Go ahead, Dan.
That's what's probably going to bounce us to this next topic is bouncing around jobs. So
Yep.
something that's not really discussed a lot in the industry is job hopping in transportation, like when you got a CDL. So me personally, I've been driving since 2015, and since 2015, I've probably I'm going to say I probably averaged 3 jobs a year since 2015. And what it boils down to for me is I'm not loyal to any company because in my eyes, there's no company that's loyal to me. And Deric and Daniel, I've talked to you guys about this the other day while we were prepping for the podcast about loyalty. I've never worked for a company that was loyal. Now the company, so a little background, me and Deric currently work for the same company. And we are pretty happy with our current employer. We're not going to disclose who that is, but we're pretty happy with them, and they treat us really well. They really do treat us really well. But in the past, we've experienced, or at least I've experienced, no loyalty in the industry. If I had a family emergency, it's like the company didn't care. When it comes to paychecks, it's the company doesn't care if there's food on my table. So if the company doesn't care about me, I'm not going to care about the company. If my money starts going down, I'm going to leave, and I'm going to go where the money's at. And one thing that nobody's ever been able to say about me is I've never been able to provide for my family. I've always been able to put food on the table. I've always been able to keep the lights on. I've always been able to provide transportation for my family. And it's, I guess, due to the fact that I'm not loyal to any company. So Deric, how do you feel about that? Going down that rabbit hole as far as loyalty goes with in transportation, how do you feel about that?
Well, when I started, even till today, I really don't believe in being loyal to any company. My goal back when I started was, even though it's looked down upon within the industry to job hop all the time, I needed to get experience in hauling different types of freight. And a lot of these companies don't understand that they want so much experience hauling, whatever freight they offer, whatever they move. But if they're not willing to train you or give you that experience, then you're not going to make it anywhere. So that was my reasoning for job hopping pretty much, was to get as much experience in hauling every type of freight I could until I found what I liked.
I've gotten so much experience. I've got tanker, dry van, reefer, flatbed, oversize, livestock. I've done everything except for car hauling, really. Container, I think too. I've done it all over the course of since 2015. What is that? 10 years? Yeah, I've done it all. I've got a lot of experience. I'm not paid like it though.
Right. No, I definitely agree.
And I think it's because employers like, because you've been job hopping, why are we going to pay you? It's like, well, I can definitely do anything that you need me to do. I can definitely do it. I've got the experience for it.
And I'm the oddball out here. I grew up around the industry, the trucking industry. So I was homeschooled in the truck by a single mother. She did some job hopping, so I was exposed to dry van, temp control, specialized dry bulk operation, small company that they ran materials called carbon black and silica. And then I decided if I was ever going to drive a truck, I wanted to do flatbed, and I wanted to specifically go to heavy haul, the super loads. So once I got my CDL after being exposed to dry van and temp control and the specialized dry bulk, I specifically targeted towards going into flatbed and super loads, heavy haul. Now, in the process of that, I have done a variety of different jobs within flatbed, from doing power load operations. I actually got to I got exposed to a set of what are called C doubles, very unique set of double trailers. Um, then I've done a variety of regular flatbed, specialized local heavy haul, where the rules, you find out real quickly that the rules for heavy haul, local is not the same as over the road. Um, and then I went into being a trainer for a company, and then I went to move into an over the road heavy haul, and with the company I'm currently at, and now I do the really really big stuff. 19 axle, 380,000 pound gross stuff is what I've gone up to at this employer. So my whole specialty has kind of been flatbed, where even though I've been exposed to a lot of the other parts of the industry. And the C doubles I pulled were dry bulk C doubles, but they looked like vans going down the road, but they were actually hoppers. And all I did is I had to take them back to a facility to get them rebuilt and down south, down in Texas. So each one of us have had a little bit of a different. I've been in the industry as a driver since end of 2010. End of 2010, I got my CDL, and then I've been around the industry since 1995. So back in the day when the majority of trucks were cab overs.
I was 5 years old, 1995.
Yeah. most of the trucks were cab overs and long trailer. Man, if you saw a 53-foot trailer back then, that was like, oh boy, that's a big trailer. Everything was 48-foot. It was still not uncommon for even your big fleets would still operate 40-foot and 48-foot trailers. 48-foot trailers might only have two kingpin or two like pin settings for the tandems. You would slide the tandems. It would either be the 40-foot or the like 42-foot setting, because that was it. You didn't have much slide. So it's been I've been around the industry long enough that I've seen it change quite a bit.
Yeah, I just started back in 2018, so I'm not that far into it yet. All I hear is the story.
It was I won't say it was better or worse. It was just different.
Right.
The industry and the world were a lot different. Pay was better, but the trucks and well, I mean, if you've driven a 379 Peterbilt, they really have not changed.
Right.
The 379 and the 389, that's the same cab that they've used since the 70s. Very small tweaks. They've improved the interior, but for the most part, it hasn't changed at all.
Have you seen the new interiors of like what do they call the 589s?
Yeah, that's a whole different.
Man, they're beautiful. So me and Deric drive brand new, what are they, 570?
67?
Yeah, 567. What are they called?
I thought they were 587s.
No. I think they're 567.
They might be. You know what? They might be 567s. Yeah.
Yeah.
We just got two at work. The company just bought our first two.
They got digital dashboards, man. How cool is that?
I do not like the digital dashboard.
I love it, man.
I always complain about it. I do not like it.
I think they're so high tech, man. I feel like I'm in Star Trek.
My previous employer, I was actually there when they got their very first truck with a digital dash. And back then we had so many problems with them. We would, I went to take it out on a test drive. This is like my last week working for him. Went to take it off for a test drive, and the dash froze before I got out of the parking lot. It wouldn't do anything. It was reading like 7 miles an hour, and I'm like, yeah, no, I'm actually doing like 15, 20. I'm not doing 7 anymore. And all the gauges were just, I'm like, great. Now I have to figure out, call the shop, pull over, call the shop. How do I reset this? Do I just key off or?
So I never had the first truck I drove with a digital dash. It took me 15 minutes to find the fuel gauge on it.
You did just look where it says fuel?
Well, it took me a while to actually see it. I had to sit there, spin the knob, get all the dials up. And
oh, man.
I eventually found it. It was like 15 minutes. But yeah,
see, I'm real big on creature comforts and like having the newest and latest equipment, right? So I don't like, so when I first came to our employer, they put me in one of the cooler, old school trucks. I didn't like it. And I asked them, can you put me in something a little bit newer? And they're like, yeah, you got this brand new 2024. If you want that one, I was like, yeah, let me get that. And pulling livestock, going from something that's got a hood that's a mile and a half long to something that's a 5.67. It's got a little snub nose, little anteater. It's a big difference when you're going down these little country roads and turning into Amish driveways. It's a huge difference when you go from a 389 Peterbilt to a 5.67 Peterbilt and a 53-foot spread axle livestock trailer.
Yeah.
Makes a world of a difference.
And a lot of these barns are tight. Makes it easier to turn around.
Oh, dude, it's
turning
so
radius
tight.
is better.
Yeah, and then and not even that, but the roads, dude. You got roads this wide.
That's true. The size of your truck.
Yeah. And you got cars coming at you, just looking at you weird, like, what are you doing on this road? You know what I'm saying?
You gotta make it back up down the road.
It's like I just work here, man. I'm just coming down here to pick up this livestock, and I'll be out of here in no time.
Yep.
Hey, I get to do that quite a bit doing the stuff I do. 16-foot wide down a little 2-lane road, and everybody's staring at you like, what are you doing here? It's like,
I was going to say, with you being as wide as you are, you'd be the same boat as we are. Yeah, you could be on a 12-lane interstate and look as big as we are on a 2-lane.
All right.
Yeah. The only big difference is I got my escort vehicles, but people still look at you like, what are you doing here? And it's like, trust me, between you and I
think it's more fascination. I think when they look at you, it's more fascination than anything. When they look at us, it's like, you're just not supposed to be here.
Hey, and they always, when I'm doing that, I get a lot of people telling me that their IQ is 1. I don't understand why you'd be so proud to just tell me, like, I only have a single digit IQ.
Well, look, Daniel, another problem that we have is a lot of the roads that we have to go down, it's clear as day, posted on the road, no trucks.
Yep.
Yeah.
But when it snows, they don't plow, ice all over.
Yep.
Or it's a weight reduced road, or there's bridge laws or something like that. But we have to go down that road to pick up the livestock.
So one of my last loads, I was 13 axles, about 200, and my actual gross weight was about 200 and I think it was 235,000 pounds that we calculated out to. 13 axles on the ground, but they routed me down a road. Tennessee did. I went over 5 bridges that had multiple large signs on them. Small roads, 40-ton weight limit. Absolutely no vehicles over 40 ton. It's like, I'm a little bit kind of blowing that out the water here a little bit. The one of them, I got almost the entire vehicle on the bridge, and it's like, this is a 40-ton weight restricted bridge. But my permit says cross this at 5 miles per hour. So I inched across it at less than 5 miles an hour. It's like, I really hope that this holds me. I hope that sign is just a lie or just scaring people, because this is a lot of weight going across the bridge, a lot more than what they're claiming it's rated for.
Right.
But the joys of doing the job, right?
That's right.
So have you guys seen any of the videos that Bruce Wilson has put up about the Scania trucks in USA?
I have not.
I've seen a couple of them. Yeah.
So
I'd like to get him on here.
Yeah. He'd be a really interesting interview, along with Scania themselves. So their trucks are a lot more advanced than ours. They have like built-in waste systems for the axles, but it's on every axle. On the tractor, they have the steer, they have the drives, then they also have trailers that are smart that they will tell you that weight of the trailer. And they have, oh my gosh, so many mirrors. They put mirrors everywhere, so there isn't anywhere that's a blind spot. You can use the mirrors to maintain your lane. Like, there's a whole bunch of technology they put in them.
Really?
Even they have a lift axle that's powered.
Really?
So when you're empty, you can lift the back axle off the ground when you need it on the ground, it's loaded. Or if traction's bad, you can drop the axle and then engage it, and it's a drive axle. Like, the technology difference is amazing. So they would be an interesting one to have on, talk about some of that technology. Now that their parent company now is owner of International Trucks. Like, could we see that technology coming over here? Their engine's already been brought over. Their little inline six, but could we see the V8 come over, having that extra power, having that the creature comforts they have? Like what? They have a built-in coffee machine in their trucks. That's a factory option, a built-in coffee maker. Like, come on, Freightliner, come on, Peterbilt. We need a coffee maker in our truck.
Right. I mean, it's definitely a good idea, but they have to look at the if the market's going to be there too. You get a lot of these carriers, they just get a truck that's basic. I mean, when I hauled cars for my last company, I didn't even have side pockets in my doors.
Yeah.
So it was just a truck, a seat and a steering wheel. So
in the industry, that's an area that we need to see improvement in the U.S.
Right.
Is in Europe, they do a lot for driver comfort.
Right.
And their drivers aren't out on the road as long as we are.
Right.
So what is the difference between the U.S. and Europe, wherein they are putting more effort into creature comfort for their driver when they're not even out on the road as long as we are, and yet our companies are they're not concerned at all about the creature comforts.
Yeah.
Like, and I look at it this way: most companies now, they want to have a truck for 3 to 4 years.
Right.
Okay, what if we extend that out? Instead of 3 to 4 years, what if we go to 4 to 5 years? If you keep a truck for 5 years, what if you keep it for an extra 6 months?
Right.
Take the money and that you're saving by keeping it an extra 6 months and put an extra $4,000 into the truck. Put an extra $8,000 into speccing the truck nicer for the driver. The creature comforts, that is a little thing that will change your driver retention.
Yeah, I mean, even if it's just a new driver's seat, a lot of them driver's seat they put in there are that hard leather. I mean, when I used to run for Pam, I was out 2.5 months at a time. I'd have to go through cushions for that, making sure I was comfortable going down the road.
You know what I like to see companies do? Buy Sirius radio for the drivers.
Yeah, that would be nice.
I would love to see companies just get the Sirius radio package in the trucks for the drivers. Just do that. Come on.
At Sirius, I don't know if they offer it, but like offer a discount. Go to a fleet and be like, hey, you've got 6,000 company trucks. We'll do, instead of whatever they charge now, $10 a month or $15 a month.
No, Sirius radio is like $30 a month.
Yeah.
It's so expensive.
I remember when it was like 10. That was back when they had XM and they were all different competitors. Like,
yeah, it's
okay,
like
go to a fleet and be like, hey, we'll offer you, say, $8 per truck. You're getting 6,000 subscribers.
Right.
Like, and then once you get them hooked, once you get a truck driver hooked on something and they accept it as norm, that becomes something they have to have pretty much for the rest of their life. Once a driver truck drivers are just because of the job, we become creatures of habit. We find the Bluetooth we like, we will continue to buy that Bluetooth until they go out of business. That's just what it is for most of us. So, like, take advantage of that, Sirius. Work with these companies. Get a pricing plan that is, and companies, don't be afraid. Invest the money back towards the trucks, because that little bit of an investment into your truck is going to wind up paying dividends on your driver retention.
Right.
I've heard numbers from $8,000 to $12,000 to hire a driver for a company.
It can be pricey, even though I don't know where that money comes from. Like, where do they spend the money on?
It's the training, it's onboarding, it's doing the paperwork, it's doing the drug screening.
Yeah, what training do you actually get when you're out there?
Yeah.
Yeah, most companies don't do training, but they consider it like your orientation.
Like, I got thrown in the truck. Here you go.
Yeah,
Get the keys.
that's
Go to work.
exactly
So
what I got.
your company's doing it the cheaper method of, we're trusting that the drivers have an ability to drive, so we're just putting them out.
Boy, they rolled the dice.
Right?
Yeah. I know it is, for them to do your background check and everything, it's about $300.
Yeah. So like there's a lot of costs like that. And a lot of it is costs that are we don't think of.
Right.
Like a drug screen. DOT panel drug screen. That's not a cheap drug screen. And now they're adding more stuff to it. The company has to pay for like their access to the drug clearinghouse. They have to pay. Like there's so many things that the government makes them pay. If you cut retention, if you can spend say $5,000 a month or $5,000 per truck, but you cut your driver retention by 10%,
Right.
and you keep the trucks for an extra 6 months, going from 4 years to 4.5 years. Are you actually spending more money, or are you saving money?
Oh, give me 1 second. I'm gonna mute myself here. All right, I'm back.
Oh, there he is.
Okay.
So what other things can be done, like creature comfort the truck? So I love the idea of Sirius Radio. I don't think every employer should offer Sirius Radio for their. Because me and Derek were talking about this the other day. I was like, you got Sirius Radio in a truck. He's like, what? I was like, yeah, check it out. And he like signed up for it. And luckily, he was able to get a free trial. But no, he had to pay $2.
Yeah, I had to pay $2. But it's nice because driving all the time, you listen to the radio all the time. Sometimes all you want to do is just listen to the news.
Yeah.
Hear what's going on around the world. And I'm sure there's a lot of drivers out there where they might be out in the middle of nowhere and all they're getting is Christian radio.
Yeah.
At least they'll be able to get Sirius XM.
And to keep drivers off their phone, because if they have Sirius Radio, that means they don't have to plug their phone in and go through their Spotify or go through their YouTube or whatever they have to go through to get their Bluetooth music, whatever streaming service they go through to get their music. They can stay off of their phone and they can just turn on their Sirius Radio. And it costs the company what? $20 a month per truck to keep the radio on?
Right.
And that, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. I mean, they're spending X amount of dollars on the truck for safety anyways. What's an extra $20 a month or whatever? I might be oblivious to what they spend, because I'm just a truck driver, I'm just a dumb little truck driver. But dude,
but it wouldn't, for most companies, that shouldn't be something that would break the bank, but it's going to be something that really is a benefit for the driver.
Yeah, it's safer. We won't be fiddling around with our phones. You know how often I don't have to
even fiddling with the radio.
Yeah.
You know how hard it is sometimes? You're trying to find a station. You're looking for this one show that it's on this station or this station. And you just have to keep nope, that's not it. This might be it. It might be on a radio. Or it might be on a break.
Yeah. No commercials. Yeah. And then, let's see. What else could they do? Oh.
I've said for a long time, if you have a company that you run over the road, you want your drivers out for more than about 3 weeks at a time, you should spec the trucks with the driver's lounge option,
like a TV couch.
Yeah, yep. At least a mounting spot for a TV. But having that driver's lounge where you can sit back in the truck. Most truck stops now don't have restaurants. They might have a couple tables where you can sit, but they don't actually have restaurants anymore. Having a place where the driver can sit, do paperwork, kick his feet up a little bit. He's got a table that he can lay his paperwork out on. It's a huge thing. I don't know, inverters. Having a big inverter in the truck, that helps a lot.
So I have to use a CPAP. So correct me if I'm wrong, but a company has to provide a way to power that CPAP, and that's ADA that mandates that, correct?
Yep, that they are required to have. If you're going to sleep in the truck, they have to have an inverter installed for your CPAP machine.
Or a way to power.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it would have, for CPAPs, I believe they have to be sine wave, because any interruptions in the inverter as the truck turns on and off, it can interrupt the CPAP machine. That'll interrupt your sleep time.
What do you mean?
But I'm not sure if it still is that way. It was at one point.
I heard that the truck has to idle.
Yeah. For the most part, most companies will put it on as the truck idles, but they do, over the last decade, they've really gotten better with inverters and trucks that they can start without interrupting the inverter's power supply. Okay. So the CPAP machine isn't actually interrupted in its operation.
Right.
But that might also be something the companies have to spec, like a box they have to check.
Yeah, I don't know anything about that. So,
Yeah.
Derek, what are some other things in the industry that aggravate you?
Well, obviously, I mean, we could always start off with the way the driving schools are.
What's give us some key focuses there.
So, anybody that's looking to become a truck driver, they're going to go to driving school. They're going to tell you, oh, it's going to be 4 weeks. You're going to learn this whole list of things. And then you get there, the day you get there, you got 20, 30 people in the same class. They're going to, go through book work, which is pretty much them just telling you what to fill out on paper. Then they throw you out in the yard 2 days later and tell you, oh, here's a list of a pre-trip inspection. Go around and, with your other classmates, start pointing things out on your truck. And, they test you once a week. But then that next week, they throw you in a truck. They tell you, oh, you're going to back up this way. They show you how to back up. And then they throw you out on the road. And you might only go go out on the road 2 or 3 times. And then they're like, okay, you're ready to test. Well, the problem with today's schooling, too, is they're forcing these drivers to learn automatic trucks. They don't have the option to do manual trucks, especially, I mean, they have the option, but if the trainer doesn't think that they're capable of doing it, they're just going to throw them in an automatic to get them out the door faster. And then what they do is they tell them, okay, if you want the automatic restriction lifted, it's going to be another $3,000.
Yep.
So
I would actually even say that a lot of the schools don't even teach drivers how to drive an automatic truck.
yeah, I
They
would
teach
agree.
them how to control an automatic truck.
Right.
But I've come across several drivers. So when I was a trainer, I transitioned from a manual to an automatic.
Right.
One of the things I did is I actually went through the manual for that automatic, the actual driver's manual, and learned what we could do with it. That way I could teach my students in this situation, this is a feature of the automatic transmission. This is how you engage it. This is how you actually use the automatic transmission.
Right.
Most companies just put them in the truck, and schools just put them in and say, hey, you just flip it to D, push the pedal down, and you drive.
That's right.
It's like there's so many more features. You can lock it in gear. You can hold it in gear. You can change the performance parameters of where it's going to shift, when it shifts, how it shifts.
Right.
You can manually select the gear up or down, even when it's in auto mode. Like, they don't even teach them how to drive that automatic. They teach them how to control the truck.
Right.
And that's a disservice to the student, because even though it's an automatic, it shifts for you. It's easier.
Right.
There is still so many options and features that if you're stuck in a parking lot, if you're stuck on a little hill because there's a little bit of ice, there are ways that you can make that automatic transmission do things. You just have to know how.
Right.
And they don't tell them. They just tell them you put it in D and go.
Yep, and it's a disadvantage to the student because they're paying anywhere from $7,500 or more to be there, and their number one goal is to get them out the door in 4 weeks.
Yeah.
Now, back when I went to driving school, it was all manual trucks. So I learned the manual truck in 4 weeks. I was probably top of my class. But in my honest opinion, when I started with Pam, I probably had no business driving a truck at that moment. Yeah, I could not back up to save my life. I mean, it probably took me a good, 2 to 3 years to get to that point where I was actually felt comfortable, just throwing the trailer in spots without, having to worry about feeling like I was going to hit anything.
How long do you think training should be now?
I believe training should be, I feel like 3 months would get them comfortable enough to be out on the road.
And then some on the road training after that.
Send them on the road training after that. Now on the road training, I did 2 weeks. I feel like maybe a month would probably be the best.
I'd say a year, man.
A year.
So the way I look at it is, training should be 2 to 3 months, and it should be a in-depth where you're learning the different size. Start with a 28-foot trailer, move them up to a 53. That way they have time to learn how to handle different size vehicles and in a safe manner. Because part of it is not just handling them, but handling them safely. I also believe that schools shouldn't be allowed to train. Right now, the law is a school can't train you with a weighted vehicle. I believe that should be reversed. They should have trucks. Your last 2 weeks of training, you should only be driving vehicles that are 80,000 pounds.
Right.
Put ballast blocks in the trailer or on the trailer. Weigh that vehicle down. Let that student find out this is how a vehicle handles at 80,000 pounds.
Right.
And then your training on the road, it should be an apprenticeship. It shouldn't be looked at as training. It should be an apprenticeship. You come out, if it's not during winter months, you come out and you'll do 2 months with a trainer. But then once winter hits, you spend your first winter with an experienced trainer. That way, any kind of road conditions you run into, that trainer already understands. He can tell you things like, hey, the road's icing up. Okay, well, how do you know it's icing up? Look at your mirror. See that ice building on your mirror? It's doing the same thing on the road. That's your warning. Well, if you're on your own and nobody's there to tell you that, and you're not from up north where we get to experience that fairly often, you're not going to know. You're going to be driving along.
Derek's had the pleasure of experiencing that the last 2 weekends.
Yeah. Of course, Dan gets lucky. He's off for 2 days.
I went back to the truck yesterday, and his truck is just covered in ice.
Yeah, and he called me yesterday, and I was like, yeah, dude, I'm only doing about 45 right now, and I got trucks blowing past me.
I was up on 80 last Sunday. A week ago today, I was up on 80 in Pennsylvania, and it was icing. Bad. Like I saw right in front of me, mile marker 76 over 8, I believe it was. Truck right in front of me had just passed me, probably still had his cruise on. I was down to 30 miles an hour because I knew roads were slick.
Right.
I could every now and then, when I was going through a turn, I could start feeling the truck drift, start feeling it slide a little bit.
Right.
I was empty, but I'm still empty weight. I'm still I'm still about 60,000 pounds. So empty, I'm still heavy. But like I was slowing down, and I was on, again, another area that we need to change as an industry. The CB radio is for communicating.
Right.
Yeah, if it's a perfectly sunny day and you want to get on there and be a child and do all of your, I grew up in the industry when you'd go by a truck stop, you knew you were getting close to one because you'd hear drivers, mom back, mom back, mom back, audio. And then you'd hear other things that were not exactly appropriate. But like that's fine on a good day. But in bad weather, that CB, which would be dead quiet, and you'd only be listening for other drivers. We have this going on here. We have this going on here. The roads are icing up. Drivers, let's, back it down. We had an accident. This truck went off the road. That was all it was for in bad weather. Nobody responded. When I got on the CB, when that truck lost control in front of me, the driver most likely had very little training.
Right.
He still absolutely had his cruise set. He lost control. He went into the ditch. I immediately started very gently trying to apply brakes. It took me almost a mile to get down to 5 miles per hour from 30. So really bad road conditions. But like nobody talked. There was nothing on the CB. Nobody said anything. I was trying to warn other drivers. I'm watching drivers in my mirror as they're coming up. They're not doing anything. They're just out in the hammer lane, the left lane, just cruising, thinking the roads are fine. And then they see the accident and they try and hit the brakes, and I could see them just starting to slide everywhere. It's like, guys, if you have your CB on for the last 10 miles, I've been on there every so often. Hey, drivers, the roads are icing up. Let's, be careful with it.
Right. That's like,
Nothing.
my CB only reaches out about a half a mile. Dan's CB doesn't even work.
My employer said that CBs are our responsibility, and I said, well, I'm not buying a CB for your truck. I'm not doing it. That's $200, $300 expense, and I'm not pulling it out of my pocket. I don't think it should be a driver's responsibility to buy a CB radio for a company vehicle.
Every semi truck should have one. Now, I believe every company should allow the drivers to tune the CBs to where they want them. Some drivers will want a CB that gets out 4 or 5 miles. Some drivers will only want, just give me a stock CB. I don't care.
So what's a stock CB?
Yeah, just a standard stock CB. If you've got good antennas and coax, should get you out to about 1.5 miles, 2 miles. But that's good coax. Most of the time, your factory coax isn't good. It just isn't. But that should be something that's standard. That's a standard safety feature. Right. We have all the technology in the world. We have cell phones. I understand that, but we can't be on the cell phones while driving.
Yeah, especially in ice storms and stuff.
Yeah, so a CB should just be a standard item. The most basic of the basic is the Cobra 29. For companies that you do a lot of night running, you get the night version. I think they call it Night Watch. You can switch it to the night mode. It has a really nice backlight that doesn't hurt your night vision. Yes, night vision in your eyes. It is a thing. But that should just be standard. It's $200, maybe $300 now. Now the CBs can broadcast on FM. They were just AM. There's a lot of technical stuff with that, but they're a little bit more expensive, but they're more capable now. It's invest that money in the trucks.
Right.
Your drivers are going to have more safety features.
I don't think it should be a driver's responsibility at all. And that's why I refuse to buy one for the truck. And a lot of drivers out here won't buy it. There's a lot of trucks you see on the road that don't have CBs because the drivers either cannot or will not buy the radio for that truck. And I think it should be the company's responsibility. We didn't buy the truck. Right. Why should we buy the radio? And companies might look at me like, well, that's, if you want it, you need to buy it. No, I think it's a necessity, and you should probably put a radio in that truck. I think it's a safety problem.
I said, I think every truck should have it. Now, if the driver wants to get his own, and he wants to peak and tune and get it
like a $600 striker or something, yeah, that should be on the driver.
Yeah.
That's on the driver.
Yeah.
But that bare minimum CB radio, at minimum, a CB should be in the truck.
Mm-hmm.
It is a safety thing. Even so, for me, I think every CB radio truck manufacturer should be held at a standard for CB as it being an emergency communication device. Even with our cell phone networks, it's not hard when you're out west to get into a situation where you've got no cell phone reception.
Right.
So having a CB radio that can get out 2 or 3 miles, you have to have good coax, not the cheap stuff they put in the factory. So the manufacturers should be required. Hey, your coax has to actually be a good quality. Yeah, it's trash. You have to put good stuff in there because that factory CB, that stock CB should be able to get out 2 miles. 2 miles, you can probably get in contact with somebody if you're in the middle of nowhere in Wyoming on US 281 and there's nothing around and you slide off the road in a snowstorm. Okay, you've got no cell phone reception. Hey, 2 miles, you're probably going to be able to hit a farmer that's got a CB in his tractor.
Right.
If nothing else, he can come out, or you're going to hit somebody that's got some kind of communication device. They can come out and they can at least get you out of the truck.
That's crazy. Is that almost all farmers have CB radios?
Yeah,
almost all trucks don't have them. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Oh, that's insane.
Farmers, they run some big stuff. Talk to the space station.
Yeah.
You ever put people on
big
Mars?
Old ham radios.
People on Mars.
So let's switch gears here, Derek. What are some other things in the industry that are your pet peeves that could be talked about right now?
Well, we talk about timed freight.
Timed freight.
Yeah, you got FedEx, UPS, your bigger carriers where they'll tell a driver, hey, you got to get from, let's say, California to Texas, and you only have so much time to get it there. You only have, let's say, an hour and a half of playtime between your pickup and your delivery. I feel like that could be a lot of cause to some of these accidents is these drivers feel rushed. And if that wasn't a thing, if they could just, pick it up, okay, if you give them, let's say, even if it's just 10 hours of playtime to get it there, they're going to give you an ETA on when they're going to be there. If you're bringing that down to an hour and a half, they're going to rush, even during, winter weather. when I worked for Pam, we ran FedEx loads, and that's how it was. And me and my teammate, we would sit there and be like, we don't even have time to stop and eat. We're just going to have to run right through it.
Mail loads,
Just in,
most mail loads are like that.
Yeah, and I feel like that's a
just in
big
time.
problem within the industry.
Yeah, that just-in-time freight. So JB Hunt, several years ago, I believe it's JB Hunt, they did a test where they took a load from New York City to California. And what they did is they had it handoff, hub and spoke process where driver left New York City, he drove 4 hours, stopped at a truck stop, swapped trailers, came back to his yard.
Right.
They found out that that was more efficient for moving a load coast to coast than if they had it on just one driver.
Right.
It's like for just-in-time freight, that should be what the industry starts moving towards.
Hub and
You
spoke.
might need, yeah,
Instead of coast to coast.
yeah. Instead of coast to coast, you can hand it off and get it coast to coast, and it will actually sit. Granted, I'm sure they did a lot of planning behind the scenes on this. This was a trial run. I can't remember. Like I said, I can't remember for the JB Hunt which company it was, one of the bigger fleets.
Mm-hmm.
But every driver was home that night, or their off time, their 10-hour break is taken at home. But that load only lost like an hour of sitting time for the entire trip, like or unscheduled. So they scheduled 15 minutes per truck swap per vehicle swap. There's only like an hour of time coast to coast that it sat when it wasn't swapping vehicles. Well, wouldn't that make more sense if you're doing just in time? If that's your specialty, that would help you with driver retention. Drivers are home at night.
Yeah.
And the load isn't sitting. The trailer isn't sitting as much. It's continuing to move constantly. You're getting the load there quicker. Yeah, you have to have more drivers, but in the reality, you're not really adding more drivers because these drivers every day are able to do another load. They're able to take one trailer from this point to this point, get it, swap trailers for a load that's going the other way. They're keeping that freight moving.
I think what the problem with that is that JB Hunt's a large carrier, nationwide carrier. I think a big problem with that is the smaller carriers. Yeah, they can't do hub and spoke. They have to do coast to coast.
Right.
And but that also comes down to if you're shipping coast to coast, do you want a small carrier on it that if their truck breaks down, they may not have the connection to vehicle repair shops? If like things like that, would you prefer a small carrier or would you prefer the large carrier?
Like the Amazon, FedEx, JB Hunt.
Yeah, the small carriers might be good for doing regional stuff or staying in, taking loads coast to coast. And hey, we have an extra 4 days on this. It doesn't have to be there in 38 hours or 48 hours. The driver can take 2 days or 3 extra days, take 7 days to get across the country. Okay, you can put it on a smaller carrier.
But wouldn't that cause a problem with pay?
It would cause a problem with driver pay. Yeah. But you can offset that by,
hourly pay.
Hourly pay.
Which is something we talked about the other day.
Now, when I haul cars, I'm not going to say a company here because it might be a little negative.
They didn't just go out of business, did they?
So they were doing a testing phase, right? So we'd load the truck with 9 cars. Let's say they had a load going from Cleveland to North Carolina, right? They'd send one driver out, drive 5 hours from North Carolina. The driver from Cleveland would drive down there 5 hours. They'd meet up, swap trucks, turn around and go back. That was their whole day, right? They did that to try and cut out their third-party carriers. So if these mega carriers, if they try doing that and they figure out, hey, we're going to save money doing it this way, we're still getting this load of freight from here to here, this load back to wherever, in a shorter amount of time within the driver's shift, we'll pay them by the hour. We can cut out third-party carriers, which is going to be bad for owner-operators.
I would say it would be initially difficult for the market to shift.
Right.
But where you're going to see things change is the owner-operators are going to pick up the higher risk stuff
Right.
and they're going to create their market of, I would say, having a nine car, having a nine car, they would have 9 different stops.
Right.
Dealers are usually getting, they're getting as you know from doing it, they're usually getting multiple cars.
Yep.
So the big fleets would continue to handle those dealership orders, and even to the point of the bigger companies. Okay, you have one guy that all he does all day is the trucks come back to the yard, he just runs them out and makes the deliveries.
Right.
He'll go out to a dealership, he'll deliver this many cars, he'll deliver the cars there, bring the truck back, and then it's there for the next driver to head up to his 5-hour one-way trip.
Right.
And then you've got the local guy doing all those deliveries. The owner-operators are going to be the ones that pick up the small dealers, the specialty orders that hey, we have one car that goes here, you're going to have 9 stops on your 9-car hauler.
Right.
That's where they would really change, and owner-operators would take that freight on more.
Right.
And the fleets would streamline into, the bigger carriers would streamline into, hey, we don't even want that freight. We don't want those. We want our trucks to have no more than 3 stops on them. Like, that's the minimum, or that's the maximum, 3 stops. We want 2 or 3. That's it. Let us go to the big dealers. We can roll our car hauler up out front, unload 4 cars.
Right.
But that also goes into car haulers. That is one segment of the industry that's largely, their pay is better because they're more hourly. Most of the car haulers are unionized.
Right. Now,
pay,
I mean, so I wouldn't say the pay is too much better.
Yeah.
I mean, especially when it comes to unions, you got to put your time in to start really making money. You got to deal with layoffs. I mean, it does happen. I hauled cars for one company for 6 months. I was laid off twice within that 6-month period. One for 6 weeks, the next one for 4 weeks. So you're talking a month and a half, no pay.
How do you stick with them?
Yeah,
honestly, that's why he only worked there for 6 months.
Yeah, no kidding.
Livestock drivers make, I feel like, a lot more than car haulers do, and car haulers do a lot more work. I mean, you got to load the cars, strap them all down. A lot of states want 4 straps on each wheel. Yeah, well, a strap on each wheel.
4 straps on each wheel? Or 4 straps each car?
Depending on the state, Ohio, there's certain cars you can 2 strap. But yeah, during icy conditions, it's a dangerous job. They do. I feel like they do deserve a lot more pay, and you got union companies out there. They're like, oh, we'll pay you by the mile, but it's going to be on the loaded mile. So if you drive all the way out to Iowa with a load, let's say you got to hit 3 stops, you might have to drive all the way, 250 miles back to Lafayette, Indiana, to pick up another load of Subarus coming back, and that's not paid. So,
and car haulers, they're surprisingly top heavy.
Yeah, they are.
Like, people don't realize how top heavy, having all those cars on that top rack, they get really top heavy real quick.
It's a bumpy ride.
Yeah.
So plus they shorten the size of the trucks just to try and get everything under height, underweight. The one company I worked for, the oil pan was 4 inches from the ground. So every bump you made, you had to take slow. If you were pulling into a driveway, you had to take slow, especially pulling into pilots and stuff like that. You got potholes all over the place.
So Cassins took a page out of Europe.
That's what I worked for.
Okay. They took a page out of Europe. They had, I believe, 2 car haulers built that they used. It was called a Freightliner Condor or an American La France Condor. It was actually made for like more garbage trucks, fire trucks.
Right.
And they built car haulers, two of them out of those, because the cabs could get so low, but they could still maintain suspension.
Right.
And that was quite interesting. I've seen them a few times, but that was quite interesting that they took that initiative to try and design that.
Right.
But it was also interesting that it didn't catch on anywhere else. Like, the cab was further forward, so you could actually see traffic lights. You didn't have the vehicle down in front of the vehicle in front of the windshield.
Right.
Um, it allowed for a little bit longer area behind the cab for a longer vehicle back there. Um, I feel like as an industry, that was looked at, they tried it, and then they were just, it's too abnormal.
Right.
Like, I don't know how you'd feel about that. Like, it is, okay, you're the first, it's a cab over, you're the first person at the scene of the accident. But at what point do we take that safety risk, which safety risks are a part of our job, and say, hey, for the advantage of I can see a traffic light, I have better visibility, my height is lower, and I actually have suspension on the truck. Is that trade-off worth it?
I mean, it's all a good idea. It's better for safety. You got more visibility. But at the end of the day, too, everything built on them trucks is aluminum, plastic. You get in an accident, that truck's going to total out because they need to get everything down to weight. Yeah, they try and get everything down to weight, everything down to height. So, like the rims on the truck, they might be aluminum. You hit something, that's it. They're done. I mean, when I worked for Cassins, that's what they used to tell us. If you hit a barrier, that's it. You're gonna total out this truck. So don't hit anything because it's just so. I'm not gonna say cheaply made. It's all lightweight material.
Do you think that it is time for us as a industry to look at increasing truck weights so that we can start bringing stronger materials back into the vehicles?
I do. Let's say, I mean, even if they raise the gross weight to, let's say, 90,000, maybe even 85,000, that gives more trucks, it's more lenient on the driver to at least get it within that weight. Me and Dan were actually just talking about, even the livestock guys, we feel like there should be a loaded weight exemption on livestock to where we can just go through the scale. Because if we get pulled in, last week, 2 weeks ago, I got pulled in. I sat there for about an hour. So that's 1 hour that my animals had to sit on the trailer because they had to go in, print out a ticket, then they wanted to do a level 2 inspection.
With live animals sitting in the trailer.
Yeah. So, okay, if they want
we drive clean trucks too.
Yeah.
It's not like we drive busted pieces of equipment. Like we drive nice equipment.
I mean, there's a lot of companies out there too, even if they don't drive, livestock, they're not the ones loading the trailer. So, and these companies don't provide scales. So you get loaded, say you're heavy, you go to a CAT scale, now you have to sit there and shift your tandem axle. If you still can't get it down to weight, you're either forced to go back to the shipper. Sometimes the shipper won't even take it back. You're forced to run it.
It's something about livestock is once they're on, you can't take them off.
That's right.
Yeah, you take them. You cannot take those back off. You can't go back to the shipper and have them take them off because you're too heavy. It don't work like that. Once they're on the trailer, they go.
So, as a solution to this, I know we discussed this yesterday, but this is all off camera. So, as a solution, maybe look at putting an airway system that the reading is actually in the trailer. So, as you're loading, or on your phone, as you're loading, you have access to what your axle weights are for the vehicle. Or start mandating, and this is something that is going to cause a lot of issue, less with livestock and more with steel shippers. Start mandating, hey, a shipper has to have a scale on site. If you're shipping stuff that if you're shipping, say, styrofoam, you make styrofoam cups. Okay, you know what? Or potato chips. You're loading 15,000 pounds in an entire trailer. You're not going to make the vehicle heavy.
Right.
But if you're loading loads where you're going to be pushing 80,000 pounds, you have to have a scale where the driver can pull on there, check his weights, make sure he's legal before he leaves the site.
Well, that's not really practical with livestock. I mean, we're at farmers' barns, and,
yeah. So like I said, the airway, we have
Well,
airway on the trucks.
me and Derek were talking about that too.
There's a certain number we have to hit.
Yeah, so we have to pull a certain number of hogs. We can't go too light and we can't go too heavy. Let's say the number is like 160 hogs. We have to get on a trailer, and we're using the airway system. Well, we have to divide that number of hogs into each cut. Well, we get the nose of the trailer, we get the belly of the trailer. Now we're in a gel and we're in the tail. Well, now we're our weight's at 84,600 pounds, and we have 8 in our gel. Well, now we're too heavy to load 23 or 26 in our tail, and now it's too late. We can't push the hogs back out and reshuffle. So the airway is not really going to work. So what me and Derek were talking about is an exemption to a weigh station for livestock.
So that would be,
but not so
that would
an ag checkpoint would be like if there was an ag checkpoint, absolutely roll into an ag checkpoint. But if we're a loaded livestock trailer, I think that we should absolutely be allowed to be exempt from going through an open weigh station. So like for us, we're 6 miles from the
weigh station.
From weigh station to slaughterhouse is 6 miles.
Yeah,
and they pull us in there and hold us for an hour with live animals on. Knowing we're 6 miles away. Derek lost 2 hogs sitting there for 2 hours, or sitting there for an hour.
So the counter to that is we have to keep in mind that there's going to be companies that would abuse that. So it would be allowing you weights that are what the vehicle's intended for. So if you have a vehicle that is 40,000 pound drive axles and a 14,000 pound steer, 20,000 pound axles on the trailer, you're allowed to gross now. That would put you at 94,000 pounds. You'd be allowed to gross 94,000 pounds. Just simply because you can put stipulations on that. Hey, the drive axles have to be a 5-foot spread. They can't be a 4.5 foot. To just spread the weight out a little bit more. The issue is going to really fall into companies that would even abuse that. Then they'd be like, okay, well, now you can get 94,000 pounds. So now we want to require you do 170 hogs. Well, we can't. So then it becomes a case of chasing that weight. So I would say it should be system wherein you have your airway available, you can check your weights, and then you would actually go to a website and register with the state, hey, I'm going to be moving hogs here to here. Just a real quick, real simple, it's not a permit, it's just you're notifying the state we're moving this, and this is what my axle weights are. I'm above the legal, what is considered legal, so the state can track it. But then it notifies the scale, hey, they've already registered with us, they're a livestock hauler, they're good.
Right. Hold up. Yeah, Dan, we have I got about 20 minutes. So
Okay.
If you want to keep going with it, we can.
All right, yeah, we can keep going with it.
All right.
So you're right, Daniel. What happened with your headphones there?
Huh?
Your headphones just came off of you.
Yeah, they just died. I had them on charging all night, and they decided they were going to die.
They're wireless?
Yeah.
All right. Well, now back to this airway system.
Little Beats headphones. I actually stole them from my wife because I couldn't find my black ones.
Oh, that's why they look so pretty.
I know, right?
I feel like the airway system is it's a good idea. I like where it's going with it. For livestock, I don't feel like it's ideal. But when it comes to your dry vans, your reefers, your flatbeds, I feel like that's where it benefit them more. At least they can go back there and tell the shipper, like, hey, I'm at my max weight. You can't load me anymore. But I do agree that even for livestock, if we did have it, there should be, if we have to call whatever state we're going to, hey, we're coming in to deliver this load. We're sitting at this weight. That way, at least, because you're right, there will be drivers that take advantage of it. If me and Dan, the most we ever ran was maybe close to 90,000 gross. There's no reason that you need to be running 100,000 pounds with
Yeah.
livestock on there. That's just packing them in at that point. That's animal, cruelty.
Yeah, it's inhumane.
So, at the most 90,000, I feel like should be the limit. Even if they do want us to still roll into the scale house, as long as we're within that 90,000 or less, they should just let us roll through.
Or if they're going to give you a ticket, make it a priority. Priority number one.
Yeah,
You
give me
get
your
out
ticket,
there.
let me go.
Yeah, there's absolutely no reason why the ticket process or an inspection process on a loaded livestock hauler should take longer than 10, 15, 20 minutes. Get it done. Get that driver out of there, because there's livestock on the trailer. You got to get that driver out of there. Unless the driver is blatantly breaking the law, like a criminal offense, you
Right.
got to get that driver out of there.
And I would even say, like with your equipment's newer. I would even say just a quick look at the data plates. Okay, they're this heavy. This is what their axle weights are. Just walk out to the data plate. Is he exceeding any of the? Is he 16,000 pounds on a steer axle and it's only rated for 12,000? Okay, that's an issue. You need to get weight off of your steer axle, not because it's necessarily not permittable, but because the axle can actually fail. Your suspension components can fail. Your tires can fail. They're not rated for it.
Right.
But if you're 16,000 pounds and your steer axle and tires are rated for 20,000, you're not breaking the components.
Right.
You're good. Like, just make sure that the components can handle the weight, and then give them a quick ticket. Honestly, at that point, it's more of a, I would say not even make it a ticket. Make it a route where they would write down you were here at this point, and then you give it to your company sends it to the state, and the state goes, okay, what was the route the truck took? It'll cost, we're going to retroactively bill you for a permit.
Right.
That permit's going to cost $45. Okay.
Right, well, and I just said to Dan the other day, I said, it's kind of messed up. I run out there overweight. I get an overweight ticket. He gives it to me and says, okay, your company has 10 days to pay this, or you're going to have a warrant out for your arrest in the state.
Yeah.
They said, even though the state, they know it's the company's responsibility, it still goes against the driver.
Yeah.
Because someone needs to be held accountable for it.
Yeah. So that should all go to the company.
Right.
So what are some other things that's on your mind that's picking at your brain today?
I don't really know. You got any questions for me?
So what did you do prior to a trucker? You said something about being an electrician, or
Do electrical school. So my whole construction career started through high school. I went through a vocational school. Took carpentry up there for 3 years. Thought I wanted to do construction work. Then I didn't enjoy it as much when I started doing it. So then I was like, you know what? I'm going to go be an electrician. Went to electrical school for a year. Graduated from that. Did electrical work for 2 years. And honestly, I think I just got tired of doing it. It was the same thing every day. Pulling wires through walls, messing your hands up. Yeah, it was hard work. And the money wasn't there. When I started out, well, of course, the minimum wage was a lot lower back then. But I started out at $15 an hour. And, I was like, I'm going to go be a truck driver because they make good money. Yeah, little did I know it was going to take me 6 years to make good money.
What were you wrong?
Yeah. So
we'd make good hours if we only worked 40 hours a week.
Yeah.
We'd make good money if we only worked 40 hours a week.
So,
man.
I mean, now I'm at a point in my trucking career where I'm happy. Yeah, happy with what I'm doing. Happy, my fiance doesn't work, so I support the family. We got kids.
Do you think you'll be a truck driver for life?
Yeah. I told my fiance, I said 30 years, I'm done.
How long? So you got what, 25 or 24 more years?
24 more years, probably, yeah. Then I'll
Man,
see, after that, I might just go try being
be an
a,
electrician again?
nah, I ain't gonna be an electrician. I might just be a trainer.
A
I guess
trainer?
it just depends on financially where I'm at that point in my life.
Right,
But I would like to work for a driving school at some point to at least help future drivers start their career, and at least I can help put them in the right direction.
right,
Not like some of these trainers that just want to get them out the door.
right.
That happened to my fiance, where she was actually going to driving school to get her Class A, and she wound up dropping out because she was not getting the training that she needed, and they wanted to force her into an automatic truck.
And she didn't want that. She
No,
wanted the
she wanted
manual.
the manual, but the problem was they only had so many trucks. So if the manual truck wasn't available, she was stuck driving an automatic. Well, that's not going to help you pass your test if you're hopping between a manual and an automatic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because especially when you're new, you're only going through a 4-week class. You don't have the muscle memory yet to remember. Yeah, of course they teach them how to double clutch and stuff. You're not going to have the muscle memory to double clutch through your test.
Full disclosure for anybody trying to get into trucking, once you actually drive a truck, you don't double clutch.
Yeah, you don't.
Yeah.
It don't exist.
Your clutch is for starting and stopping. That's it.
That's it. Yeah.
I think I've probably double clutched more doing some of my heavy loads now than I have the entire rest of my driving career.
We should do a podcast completely on what to expect outside of truck driving school.
Yeah.
So anybody that's going to truck driving school isn't nervous, because there was so much for me when I went to truck driving school that I was so nervous about coming out of it that I wish I knew coming out of truck driving school, because it would have made my career so much better. I've been so much calmer.
I would say call it like something. We need to do a podcast, maybe even if we can get like another driver, like 4 of us on, that is just behind the curtain of driving. Like, this is what it actually is when you get out here. You're not going to double clutch hardly ever.
Right.
This is what you're gonna have to get involved with. Like, when you're at a truck stop, get out and look twice.
Yeah.
And if you aren't exactly sure when you get back to the door, look again.
Right.
Like,
always check your kingpin.
I do. Yeah, I do.
Oh, Daniel takes him with him.
Yeah. Hey, you know what? I take my kingpin with me.
I didn't know that was a thing.
Yep. Removable kingpins. I think the trailer I have now, I have 3 different pinholes for it that I can select. Maybe 4. I can't remember. The flip neck, I can't remember if it has 1 or 2. I think it has 1. But I do trailers that are, I go down the road. I have to have escorts sometimes when I'm empty. My trailers are 130, 140,000 pounds empty. That's my weight. I'm 10 foot wide, almost 100 foot long. Just empty.
Right.
Actually, sometimes I'm over 100 foot long when I'm empty. It's like,
last time I seen an escort, I was getting fuel in Memphis.
Right? I mean, I was down there not long ago. I didn't see any escorts. But I still get out, even with that. I've got all this. I do all this stuff with exotic trailers that very few companies operate. I get out and look. When I'm
that's important. That rings true.
I get out and look. I'll be at our yard. I get out and look 4 or 5 times at our yard. I'm backing into a spot that I should be perfectly easy to get into. I still get out and look. Guys, if you're a new driver, never be afraid to get out and look. I'm pulling around a $4.5 million trailer that steers itself. I can put it on a remote. And you know what? I still take the time to tell everybody else, you're going to wait for me. I'm getting out, and I'm putting eyeballs on the corners of the vehicle, all 4 corners. I am looking at what is happening.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no need to impress anyone out there. You're out there for yourself. You're going to hear smack talk from the other drivers. It's just going to happen, especially if you have to pull up 10, 15 times to get into a spot. But
if CB works here, you'll hear the smack talk.
Yeah, you'll hear the smack talk.
Oh,
yeah. I mean, there are drivers out there that'll help new drivers back into spots. And sometimes even, 6 years later, there's still days that I'm just like, I ain't with it today. It might take me 3 or 4 times to pull up to get it in, wherever I got to get it in.
It
I
took
seen
me a
Dan
half
spend a
hour.
half hour the other day.
If you tell me to park a truck in an empty parking lot, hey, there's lines on the ground, just go out there and pick a parking spot, man, you better come out there and at least put cones on the ground. Because
Right.
if I ain't got something that I gotta like back around and not hit, I ain't gonna know how to park. Like
Right.
it just, I'm gonna be all over the place. Like, man, I'm in this. I don't know. I'm somewhere.
Yeah, I mean,
One of
we all
the
have our days.
so I pull trailers that are kingpin steered. The back axles will steer on the trailer axles steer when I make maneuvers.
Okay.
They do it when I back up too. The first time I tried to back into a parking spot at a truck stop, I almost started crying. I was like, I cannot, nothing that I have, all the training I have, I am right now trying to just back this trailer, 20-degree turn. That was it. Like, it wasn't like I had to blind side, nothing complex, just a slight little, just needed to just back it in.
Right.
Man, it took me 35, 40 minutes. Like,
I was
my
there the
leg
other
was
day.
tired from feathering the clutch. And I was just like, I cannot get this. I finally got it in the parking spot, and another driver came over. He's like, "Man, you must not have been driving for very long." I was like, "I've been out here for like 10, 12, I think 12 years at that point." I'm like, "Man, my brain was not letting me. I've been through
Yeah.
the training on the trailer. My brain outside of that training environment, yeah, I'm one of the elites in the industry, and my brain just completely took a just right onto the floor. Like,
Right.
I don't know what else to tell you, but I didn't hit nothing.
Yeah,
So,
that's
you
all that
know what?
matters.
That's the good thing. I didn't hit nothing. I already got my half-hour break in, and now I can go inside and get a sandwich and just get back on the road.
Yeah.
But, well, I think this will about wrap it up with us. We'll definitely look forward to having you on again in the future.
Yeah, definitely. Just let me know.
Oh, we will. And Dan, any parting words of wisdom?
None at all.
None at all.
None at all.
So the hat that Dan is wearing, you can now find those. There's a couple of, I believe, 2 embroidery shops I just saw that you put up there that we have partnered with.
It's innovative stitching. There's one in Fremont, Indiana, and there's one in North Baltimore, Ohio. Let me find
both at the Petros, if I remember correctly. Fremont, Indiana is the Petro.
Now,
I-69, and then North Baltimore is also the Petro. It used to be a Truck World. Yep.
That's backwards. But so if you guys go there to get this hat, you can get it on anything. They have the file, the FSSG file, at the Fremont, Indiana location. Now, if you go to the North Baltimore location, tell them that the FSSG file is from the Fremont location, and to contact the Fremont location to get the file. But they have it on hand, and you can get it printed on anything, any color you want. I like the basic colors. I mean, our basic colors is white and yellow. I mean, that's just what we do. But you can get pink and green, yellow and blue. It's whatever you want. Put it on anything you want. Shirt, hats, underwear, socks. I don't care. So yeah, get it now at the Petros. Okay. I think Deric said he's going to buy 10 hats.
Yeah. And I'm going to buy 10 cups there, Dan.
10 cups. Oh yeah, my wife makes cups, so he came over yesterday and bought a couple cups.
Yeah,
she
might have more comments.
She made this little pig tumbler for me yesterday. Look at it. Look how cool that is.
He's part of the pig hauler mafia.
Yeah, that's right.
And look at the detail of that.
Yeah,
just so everybody knows,
detailed.
AI generated this image, and my wife put it on a tumbler for me. So I mean, that's pretty cool. That's an AI generated image.
Yeah,
so pretty cool. Yeah. So there's my words of wisdom. So Deric, it was great having you on.
I appreciate
hope we can get
it.
you on again. And Daniel, it was great seeing you again. So until next time, guys, thanks for watching this episode.
All right.
We'll see you next time.